Hello, my beautiful friends. It is an amazing day today. Welcome back and happy Monday. I hope your weekend was incredible and you're recovering from the Thanksgiving holiday. Very glad to have you back. We got a bunch of business to attend to today. Hunter Biden pardon documents. We've got Kash Patel going to the FBI, and we've got a J6 report that says that they used a bunch of old information in order to go against the MAGA extremists and purge the military. And so a fun docket today, and we're excited to get into it. As you can see, this is the disgusting document right here on your screen that has been handed down by our demented president, Joe Biden. And we'll come back to that. We got a bunch of good stuff. We've got reaction to this, and we actually have the court documents, the court filings, because Hunter is already moving to get his Delaware case dismissed. So we'll come back. We'll see what Judge Mary Ellen Norica had to say about it. And then we got reaction, including from Dan Goldman and others who are being made to be fools for having lectured all of us for the last 4 years that no one's above the law. No one's above the law. All of a sudden, Hunter Biden's clearly above the law. We've got that. Tons of Kash stuff because they're melting down. I got a full segment here from Joe Scarborough. Not a full segment, but several minutes from him and others on the MSNBC failing network, along with Raskin and more, saying that Kash Patel is going to be terrible for them. Going to be pretty great for America, but they do not want that to come and impact them. And then, of course, a J6 report, which was a doozy. This is a big fat report. Take a look at this one. This is something that the DOD dropped, and it's all about extremist activities. And this is the document that is old and some might say manipulated. And so it's a great day, my friends. Great to see everybody. The tubes are warmed up. That's tremendous. That means we can get into the business on the day. And so let's just do it, shall we? Dan Goldman and many other liberals absolutely embarrassed today after Joe Biden handed down the pardon. And we're going to see what his reaction looks like here, because as you can see, he's got a little bit of a glisten to him, a little bit of a nervous sweat, a little bit of a nervous glow, because him and many others like these folks, this guy Pakman and others, including liberals, have said for years that Joe Biden is a man of integrity, somebody who is not ever going to put somebody above the law. And then he did that. So we'll watch all of these people. But the big one of the day, perhaps the most embarrassing one, was with Dan Goldman, a representative from New York, from the Levi Strauss family, and some say bought his Congress seat. But here he is, and they play the clip for him. They say, sit here and watch it, Dan. How does it feel?
In July of 2023, just after that plea deal fell through, this is what you said. I want to watch.
Do you think a pardon for his son would be a mistake?
Yes, and I don't think there's any chance that President Biden is going to do that, unlike his predecessor, who pardoned all of his friends and anyone who had any access to him. And I think you see that in this case, where he kept on, and Merrick Garland kept on, a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney to investigate the president's son. If there is not an indication of the independence of the Department of Justice beyond that, I don't know what we could look for.
Oh! Just made him sit there and watch it. And you can see even his blinking. It was like, this is not going to be good.
I mean, what does that feel like, watching yourself back then, reassuring people that Biden was not going to issue a pardon for his son?
How's it feel, Dan?
Yeah, and I think that if that plea agreement and that plea deal had gone through, there would be no pardon. That was a satisfactory outcome.
It already fallen through.
That only was. Sorry?
When you reacted, this was when the deal had fallen through. And I hear what you're saying.
So you knew that even after the deal was over, your position was Biden was not going to pardon him. Okay, the deal was over. Hunter was not going to resolve his case at that time. What's your reaction? Is Daddy going to sweep in here to save him? No, he's not going to. You just said it, Dan. And they made him sit there and eat the whole clip. Wow. That's from CNN. That's a lot of fun. And Dan looks a little tense. Looks like he's sweating a little bit. And the point is that Hunter ejected himself out of that plea deal. And that plea deal was a rigged deal anyways, where they had these two deals. They were going to say one envelops the other. And so if you have this agreement, you can't prosecute him over here. And the DOJ was like, well, we can't put that in writing. And Hunter's like, well, we have to have it in writing. Like, we're not going to do it. The judge asked a couple basic questions. Hunter and his team, they dug their heels in. They pounded their fist on the table and said, we're not taking any one of your stupid deals. Get the hell out of here. We were here scratching our heads going, that's weird, because this deal was a sweetheart deal. It would have made everything go away for him, and it would have immunized him. This was the concern. It immunized him from everything else. And his lawyers were saying, well, there's one little way that it might not immunize him and it might open the door. And they said, well, can you close that hole? And they said, well, we can't do that. Like, we can't put that in writing. And they said, okay, we're not going to take the deal. Well, we know it would have been an unspoken rule. And if the next DOJ would have come in and tried to prosecute Hunter, he would have just turned around and said, see, this one deal gave me immunity, and so you can't prosecute me. So he withdrew from that. And then the case had to come back upon itself, had to go basically be reinstated into a trial path versus a pretrial resolution. And Dan was commenting on it after the fact, and he had to sit there and eat his own words. And so shout out to CNN when they make him eat it. We appreciate that. But he is not alone. A lot of people are eating their words today. Karine Jean-Pierre doing the same. Someone pointed out here, Audrey Fahlberg, who is a political reporter over for National Review, says Biden discussed pardoning his son with some of his closest aides, at least since Hunter's conviction in June, which we knew about. Says it was decided at the time that he would publicly say he would not pardon his son, even though doing so remained on the table, because he's a liar. Now, Joe Biden's been a liar about everything, and the Democratic Party has enabled the lies. They told us that he was competent in 2020, and he wasn't. Okay, he was about as good as he is now, maybe a little bit better, but he was still barely functional, and they shoved him into the presidency, which was gross negligence at minimum, if not other things. So in addition to that, they then said he was competent for 4 years, clearly wasn't, and all of his policy positions they've lied to us about. They've also said now he was not going to do this, and he did it. Now, here is a fun clip from David Pakman. A lot of people are eating this, and they should be furious about this, by the way, because they bought the lie hook, line, and sinker. And when this was going on, they didn't hesitate to rub Republicans' noses in it and say, God, they're so dumb. Joe Biden is a man of his word. He hasn't lied and plagiarized things or been a reprehensible politician for 30 years. No, he's a man of honor and a man of his word. Here's this one.
Radical and repugnant reactionary Congresswoman Lauren Boebert tweeting out some very, very hard stuff, saying, quote, Hunter Biden was proven guilty. How long until dear old dad gets involved and fixes this all up for him? These are extraordinarily stiff allegations coming from Lauren Boebert.
She nailed it.
Particularly,
absolutely
since
right.
Joe Biden said himself just days ago, he's not going to get involved. He's going to respect the decision of the jury. He's not going to be pardoning his son, Hunter Biden. Take a look at this. He is on the record saying it. But these MAGA types don't care. They'll whatever they can say, which really should be applied to Trump, they will say. But listen to this from Joe Biden's weekend interview.
And Joe Biden lied.
Your son Hunter is on trial, and I know that you cannot speak about an ongoing federal prosecution. But let me ask you, will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes.
He has ruled out a pardon for Hunter Biden.
Liar.
Joe Biden has many things that we could say are deficits or that we don't like. But he didn't do enough of this. He didn't do enough of that.
Yeah, a lot.
But Joe Biden knows that the rule of law is too important to our democracy for him to jump in and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to pardon Hunter Biden.
Yikes. So if by converse, right, if his argument is that Joe Biden protects the rule of law by not pardoning Hunter, what has Joe Biden just done? Wrecked the rule of law? Or has he confirmed that the DOJ is a corrupt entity? Even though in this case, the DOJ was David Weiss, who brought the most basic types of charges you could possibly imagine. If he wanted to bring a real case, he could have done that by just taking a look at our friend MarcoPoloUSA.org's book called The Report on the Biden Laptop that chronicles tons of crimes that are inside that extremely informative and disturbing document. So take a look at it, marcopolousa.org. But it was rigged from the beginning, and now they are moving forward with resolving this. So we're going to take a look at the case. You can see Trump's team, I'm sorry, I'm used to saying that, Hunter's team has filed their paperwork to dismiss the case, and this is quick. As soon as the pardon dropped, next morning, these documents are flying. And so we'll come back, we'll take a look at what they've said, because the DOJ opposed it. They said, no, you can't just dismiss this indictment so quickly. We oppose your motion to dismiss the indictment. Now, it's ultimately going to go away because it's a presidential pardon, and there's not much you can do about it. But here is all the people who said no one's above the law. No one's above the law except Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, Jack Smith, and the DNC, and everybody else who was able to prosecute illegally, in my opinion, Trump, the J6ers, and many others who've been on the receiving end of the governmental censorship and lawfare for the past several years. They all must be just come crumbling down, having now to admit someone is above the law.
No one is above the law.
Wrong.
No one is above the law.
Wrong.
Nobody is above the law.
Wrong.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
Nobody is above the law.
Wrong.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
Wrong.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
Wrong.
No one is above the law.
Yep. Hunter is above the law, as you can see. Get on out of there, Hunter. Get right on out of there, because no consequences coming to you. Everybody's above the law, except Trump, apparently, right? They can come after him. Trump is below the law, dramatically below the law. And so it is a clown show, as you can see. Shout out to Phantom Shadow for putting that together at that X account. So that's what's happening out there. Here was another mashup saying that Hunter would never be pardoned by Joe. And I'm not going to play this full exchange here, but you can follow at Tom S. Elliott. Great follow. Says, this is a supercut assembled over from our friends at Grabian. Says, corporate media, obviously Biden, would never pardon Hunter. It's 9 minutes of this. We'll just play a snippet so you can get a taste.
Presidential promise to put the law before a family.
I said I abide by the jury decision. I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
Letting the world know that he will not wipe away the decision of 12 of his son's peers.
Was asked directly, and he has said he wouldn't pardon his son if he gets convicted.
Let's wait and see what happens if he loses.
Yeah, but he said it.
He's going to get pardoned by
Chris Matthews with a rare, astute point.
Dad. There's no question about that.
The president has ruled out pardoning his son.
Major commitment from the president, accepting the outcome of the trial and also pledging not to pardon his son.
So the challenge for him is really to continue to live up to his values when it was really personal. And
do you think they're even mad at all that they had to get up there and say that stupid stuff? Do you think they even care at all? Or they're just so used to it? Whatever's on the screen, they just read.
He did that today.
It seems like a pretty normal, straightforward answer, but it takes new weight when we see what Trump is saying about the outcome of his trial, what we're hearing from other Republicans who say they don't accept the jury's verdict here in New York.
The contrast is profound.
Yeah, and that's right. They use this to smear the right. Look, Joe Biden accepted the results of his election. Here are all these Republican MAGA extremists, like watching the watchers, who are here ridiculing the DOJ when they prosecute extreme MAGA extremists. Yeah, that's us. And turns out we don't have the pardon power, all right, like the president does. The reason he accepted the results of the case is because, well, he just wrote a letter that says you're free. It's very easy to do that. You can accept whatever outcome you want when you can change the outcome, and it doesn't matter at all.
Sit there and say, well, I'm not going to intervene in the legal process.
He did.
And I wouldn't pardon my son. One side, Democrats and Joe Biden protecting the justice system. And on the other, Republicans and Trump protecting Trump.
There you go, right? There you go. So it's the same pattern over and over and over again. They did it for 9 minutes. This is just a short assemblage of clips from our friend Tom S. Elliott. It goes on. I mean, this is every day for years. And now they must all be really embarrassed with themselves, right? Really? Maybe? Do they even notice? Probably not. They'll blame Trump for it. But here's what's happening in the cases. The Hunter Biden case docket now piles up as the motion to dismiss comes in from Hunty Poo and his lawyer. You see, this is the docket right after the president entered the pardon. Joe Biden pardoning his son, Robert Hunter Biden. This is what came in from the defense. The declaration of Robert Hunter Biden, a notice of the pardon, and the text of the proposed order. But the government objected to this. This is a response in opposition. The federal government, David Weiss, says, what? Don't dismiss this already. What are you, nuts? You can't dismiss this so quickly. You need more proof. And so then Hunty Poo and his defense team came in and submitted some more proof. So we'll see what the judge does. But here's what this looks like in summation. Right after the pardon from the president dropped, right? Basically the same day. Pardon came out 12/1, late at night. 12/1, they submit their filing, right? They tag team the heck out of this. Probably filed it all together. And here's what Hunter's himself wrote. This is RHB, Robert Hunter Biden, now a free man, thanks to his daddy, who also got him all his money and all of his meaning in life, I guess. Robert Hunter Biden, a shell of a man, says that in the District of Delaware, he wrote this. He says, here's a declaration of Robert Hunter Biden in support of a notice of my daddy saving me. I, Robert Hunter, declare as follows. On December 1, the President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, my dad, granted me a full and unconditional pardon for the offenses specified in the indictment in this case, because it covered everything. On December 1st, I received and I formally accepted the President's grant of a pardon. Files this the same day. I declare under penalty of perjury that the foregoing is true and correct, executed the same day that Daddy entered the pardon by Robert Hunter Biden. Pathetic. Now, here is the actual pardon itself. Executive grant of clemency. Here's what Joe Daddy wrote, just so we have this memorialized. What a pathetic joke this is. Joe Biden Jr. signs a get-out-of-jail-free card for his loser son. Says, President of the United States of America, to all this who concerns and whatever, a full and unconditional pardon for Hunter for all those offenses. And you can see here, it's a huge range. January 1 to December 1 from 2014 to 2024, looking back all the way to right when he took the board in Burisma, looking back 10 years, everything. And it's different than in other pardons, like when Trump pardoned Kushner's father-in-law after he served time, after he paid his penalties. Hunter is never going to serve any time or pay any penalties or have to pay any of those back taxes or any restitution or anything. So these two docket numbers are gone, but it's way broader than that. It's for anything going all the way back to 2014 when he signed up with Burisma, making $83,000 a month, $1 million a year, doing nothing because he doesn't know anything about oil and gas. In testimony, says Joe signed this document and that has been submitted. Now, they didn't submit this document to the court yet. And so Hunter had only submitted a notice because they didn't have that copy yet. And so the government came back out and they said before that document is out, obviously, they said, what? You don't even have this filing. You just submitted a notice, the only thing that we read. And it was just a very brief filing. You can see they gave the judge a proposed order. So Hunter's team said, oh, here you go, Judge. Just sign this right here. Just put Honorable Mary Ellen Norica. Just sign that right there and just date it. Say everything is dismissed with prejudice, can't come back. Proposed order. Okay, just sign that. They also said, here's our notice of a pardon. So they say, Your Honor, Defendant Robert Hunter Biden respectfully provides notice of a full and unconditional pardon that requires this indictment against him be dismissed. This notice is made because on December 1, Joe Biden, the daddy of Hunty, issued a full and unconditional pardon that he's accepted. We've submitted a declaration that we've read. The president's pardon moots Mr. Biden's pending and yet to occur sentencing. Okay, so he was convicted and he had let me say this. He wasn't convicted because he hasn't been sentenced yet. He was found guilty, but the conviction has not been ratified yet because the sentencing never occurred. The same components that we discussed in the Trump New York case where he is set for sentencing or was set for sentencing until they vacated that in the Bragg prosecution over the false business entries. So he says, sentencing has not happened yet, so I haven't been convicted of anything. Daddy got it done right in the nick of time. Saying a pardon is an act of grace, which exempts the individual from the punishment of the laws. And once accepted, the wrongdoer is released from punishment and restores the offender's civil rights without any qualification. For all those 10 years, he's cleaning house. And a couple of points came up. We were talking about this morning on our members only stream. We'll have a more full segment on that coming out later. But several things we talked about. One, can Hunter be immune from testifying, or can he be forced to testify? And I think part of the concern with that, it's a neat idea that Hunter might be forced to come in and testify against other people because he's now got immunity. And the idea is the right against self-incrimination protects you against the prospect of criminal charges. But in Hunter's case, since there is no prospect of criminal charges, at least at the federal level, he doesn't have that concern, and so he should be forced to testify. I think he still would bring up the possibility of state charges and civil charges, and so would that give him enough to still to invoke his right to remain silent? Because he could, anything he said could be used against him in those other capacities, which I think is one defense that he would bring up, but I don't think he's going to testify anyways. The other question would be, if he is forced or compelled to testify, let's say in Congress, and he doesn't, would they turn that over to the DOJ, who would then push that forward to obstruction of justice, or how might this continue under a new Trump DOJ under Pam Bondi? So a lot of questions can come up from this, but Hunter is free from these cases and any other case in those past 10 years. And another concept that came up, which was very interesting, is so that means Hunter could have done basically anything he wanted these last couple days and then got pardoned on the first. So in other words, Hunter's Thanksgiving was lit. You know, who knows where he was or what the hell he was doing. You know, he was at Disneyland the other day. So whatever he was doing at Disneyland, he's immune from. He's free from any criminal consequence because he got pardoned for that conduct. And I don't know what he was doing at Disneyland, but he did not look, like it's a small world after all or whatever. I don't know. But when alerted to a pardon by a defendant, courts dismiss the indictments, as we've done in these other cases. Bannon and Carson and Carter and these other cases. And so here, dismissal of the indictment with prejudice and adjourning any future proceedings and entry of judgment in this matter is now required. And so for the reasons above, the court must dismiss the indictment against Hunty. An order is submitted, signed by Abby Lowell, Hunty's lawyer, who's been along on the ride for quite some time. So with all of that now being filed, the DOJ responded, and some people were kind of raising their eyebrows when this hit the docket. What? The government opposes the motion to dismiss? It's a presidential pardon. What are you going to oppose? But here's their take. They say, this should be denied. There's no binding authority on this court that requires the dismissal here. Let me explain. They said on December 1st, media outlets reported that Joe had issued a pardon for Hunty. Shortly thereafter, then they filed a notice of a pardon. But guess what? In that original filing, they did not attach the pardon to its filing, and the government doesn't have a copy of it. So in that filing, they asserted without any legal support that a full and unconditional pardon requires dismissal of the indictment against him. Now, defense counsel misinterprets the law. Nothing requires the dismissal in this case. In fact, we can still prosecute him. In the United States versus Steve Bannon case, the defendant moved to dismiss the indictment pending against him after he got a presidential pardon. But the government took the following position, which this opposition is consistent with. Okay, so when Bannon came out and tried to dismiss his case, the DOJ came back and says, well, the government does not dispute that the pardon, which has been docketed, ends the prosecution as to Bannon. Oh, that's fine. Like, okay, we can't prosecute him. But the DOJ, when they were prosecuting Steve, respectfully submits that there is neither a need for an order dismissing the indictment, nor any authority mandating such an outcome on these facts. Instead, The government submits that the court can and should direct the clerk of the court to terminate Bannon as a defendant in this case and have the docket sheet reflect the pardon as the disposition of his charges. All right, so it's a pardon, it's not a dismissal. If the court is inclined to dismiss the indictment as to Bannon, so it's how does this end up with finality? Is it like Hunter will not have a criminal conviction, but why? Because the case was dismissed or because he was pardoned? The government respectfully submits that any order of dismissal should conform to the language and to the scope of the pardon, right? So now they're coming back to the order that was proposed by Abby and Hunty, and they say, notice of his pardon, hereby ordered that this matter is dismissed with prejudice. And that's it, dismissal on the docket, right? Hunty gets dismissed. Yeah, but we want to say it's a pardon. So the DOJ, the special counsel, says, now, while as Bannon's motion itself notes, and that's what the DOJ wanted when Bannon was being prosecuted. They say, while Bannon, courts have not acted uniformly in ending a case against a pardoned defendant, there is no question that the court may simply terminate Bannon from the case based on the docketed pardon. So docket the pardon and then just remove Bannon from the case due to the pardon, but don't dismiss the case. What happened here was docketing a presidential pardon for a defendant who had not been sentenced and notating on the docket sheet that the case against the defendant had been terminated and charges were then disposed of by a full pardon granted. Okay, so it's like what ends up on the form is literally what we're debating about. And I do think it's important. Moreover, where courts have entered orders dismissing the indictment, including in many of the cases cited by Bannon, those orders have generally been entered with the consent of the government. And in cases involving single defendants, those facts are obviously not present here. And to the contrary, the charges and the forfeiture allegations remain pending as to the three co-defendants, which is Bannon's case. Notwithstanding Bannon's stated preference for an order of his dismissal, his motion neither cites to any controlling authority requiring such a dismissal, nor does he indicate why simply terminating him from the case would be insufficient. So in Bannon's case, there were co-defendants, and they're like, no, we're not going to end this case, like not going to dismiss the indictment, but we'll just remove Bannon. Here, in this case, Your Honor, the government, just like in that case, does not consent to the dismissal of the case. Now, the court in the Bannon case found neither the government nor Bannon has cited authority binding on this court, whether the correct course is to administratively terminate Bannon from the case or to dismiss the indictment. The court further noted that the majority of courts, when faced with such a decision, have chosen to dismiss an indictment, and in that case, the court chose to do so. In addition to, because this is not a super common thing that happens, where you're in the middle of sentencing, and what do we do here? In addition to citing decisions where a court chose to do so, the Bannon court, the judge, also cited to the Urlacher case, where the indictment was not dismissed, in fact. In that case, the court issued an order that said the following. So here's what the disposition was, because you could have an indictment dismissed for a lot of reasons. Hunter wants the indictment dismissed, because then he can say, my case was dismissed. And there's a million reasons. Maybe because he was actually not guilty and there's some sort of evidence that popped up that caused the prosecutors to dismiss it. Or it could be because his daddy pardoned him. So in this case, when it came to Casey, it's like they want to attach a scarlet letter to the person just to say, it's like an asterisk. Like when we talk about Shifty Adam Schiff, we always say he's censured and we draw that asterisk. Usually we try to put it on his neck because there's so much room there. Try to put it right on there. But he would say that, well, the asterisk is the censure. You got a little attachment on there. Now, in light of the grant of clemency filed on February 1, the clerk in that case was directed to terminate all motions as to Casey Urlacher, administratively terminate all charges pursuant to the grant of clemency. So it was an administrative termination, not a dismissal. A similar one was another order. This is from 2017. This case is from Judge Leon. He says, pursuant to clemency signed by Barack Obama, dated on January 17th, 17, right before he left. Mr. Cartwright is pardoned for the offenses charged in the information filed here. And filed under that docket. He's pardoned. And that's what the order says, right? That's the order. He is pardoned. That's how they interpreted the order. So the order doesn't say indictment dismissed. They just closed the case because he was pardoned. Now, as a matter of past practice, courts do not dismiss indictments when pardons are granted, Your Honor. Rather, in each of the most recent cases where pardons have been granted by Obama and Trump, the district court for California has not dismissed the indictment. Instead, it has been the practice of this court that once an executive grant of clemency has been filed on the docket is marked closed, the disposition entry is updated to reflect the clemency, and no further action is taken. So you guys don't dismiss anything, you just close it. The logic for why they do not dismiss is sound. Here's what one Chief Justice wrote. He said, a pardon is an act of grace, proceeding from the power entrusted with the execution of the laws, which exempts the individual on whom it is bestowed the pardon from the punishment the law inflicts for a crime he has committed. A pardon does not blot out guilt or expunge a judgment of conviction. It's not a dismissal. A pardon cannot erase a judgment of a conviction or its underlying legal or factual findings. Sheriff Judge Arpaio case, Ninth Circuit, vacating all opinions in that case. So they say, look, it's just an asterisk. You're guilty, but you've been pardoned. Specifically, and it's not that your case has been dismissed, specifically as to whether a pardon must, as the defendant here, Hunty, wrongfully claims, result in a dismissal, the D.C. Circuit also explains why it doesn't. They said, well, an indictment establishes probable cause that the accused has committed a crime. Guilt can be established only by a much higher standard, proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Because a pardon does not blot out guilt or expunge a judgment of conviction, one can conclude that a pardon does not blot out probable cause of guilt or expunge an indictment. Now, in another case, former CIA deputy director named Claire E. George requested reimbursement for attorney fees that she had incurred as a result of the Iran-Contra investigation. The Ethics in Government Act, which created the independent counsel, authorized the award of attorney's fees, but only if an individual were not indicted. So she got indicted. After being indicted, she got a pardon from Bush and applied for a reimbursement of attorney fees, saying, hey, now you should pay me for that. It was expensive. In rejecting her claim, they said, no, sorry. The law says the pardon does not blot out your guilt or expunge the indictment. Though pardoned, her disability, which was her indictment, means she could not collect attorney's fees. If a pardon could not expunge the indictment in that case, definitely not going to do that here. So the cases cited by Hunter do not explain why an indictment should be dismissed when the act of clemency terminates the criminal case. And so more broadly, there is no defect in the indictment or anything that warrants a dismissal. It was returned as a lawful legal indictment. Okay. It came from a lawful grand jury. He filed 8 motions to dismiss the indictment, making every conceivable argument for why it should be dismissed. All of them were deemed to be meritless. Now, of note, Hunter argued that the indictment was a product of vindictive and selective prosecution, which it was the opposite. It was like a gimme gift of a prosecution. The court rejected that claim, finding that, as the court stated at the hearing, Hunter filed his motion without any evidence at all. And there was none, and never has been any evidence of any vindictive or selective prosecution, because this case is a joke. He should have been prosecuted for much more. Hunter made similar baseless accusations in Delaware too. Those claims were also rejected. And so in explaining why, the Delaware court exposed the nonsensical nature of Hunter's selective prosecution claims. They say this is ridiculous. Hunter's claim that he's being prosecuted is insane. He's the son of a sitting president. The executive branch that charged him is headed by his daddy. The AG heading that was appointed by his daddy. The attorney general who appointed the special counsel, David Weiss, his father was the sitting president at the time, and David Weiss came from Delaware, which is where his daddy was the governor for years, the senator. Regardless of whether congressional Republicans attempted to influence the executive branch, he was in control of everything at all times. All of it controlled by his father. Republicans had nothing to do with any of these charges. The court similarly found that his vindictive prosecution claims were unmoored from any evidence. They say, yeah, as the case is with selective prosecution, the relevant point in time is when the prosecutor decided no longer to pursue diversion. That was the deal where he could have signed it and all of the charges would have been dismissed. He rejected it, so they indicted him. Whether former administration officials harbored actual animus towards Hunter at some point is irrelevant, especially true here. The court has given no evidence or any indication that there was any influence about Weiss or his team to go after Hunter. No, it's what happens. If you reject diversion, they have no choice but to indict you. At best, Hunter has generically alleged that individuals from the prior administration, Trump, were and are still targeting him, and therefore it's vindictive. Well, the problem with that is that Daddy and Merrick appointed special counsel Weiss, who was already the guy investigating it. Okay, so they took the guy who was investigating it as just a U.S. attorney and just made him a special counsel. And they said it's now independent or something. At a time when his daddy was still prosecuting him. So Hunter has offered nothing credible to support any of this. No finding at all. Any claim is a failure. And so Hunter appealed the denial of those motions, went up to the Ninth Circuit, appealed to the Third Circuit in Delaware. In total, 11 different judges appointed by 6 different presidents, including his father, considered and rejected Hunter's claims, including his claims for selective and vindictive prosecution, adding up all of his appeals. Hunter pled guilty to all the charges in the indictment so remember, there are 2 cases that we're talking about, Delaware and California, both under the same special counsel. And so we're jumping back and forth between them here. But says in the California case, the indictment, according to the declaration, he acknowledged his guilt and accepted clemency because he didn't want that trial to go forward and air out all of his dirty laundry. So he just pled. Now, as stated above, and he was scheduled for sentencing, the defendant did not docket the pardon, nor has the government seen it. If the media reports are accurate, and that's come out now, the government does not challenge that he has got an act of mercy. That's fine. But that does not mean the grand jury's decision to charge him based on a finding of probable cause should be wiped away like it never occurred. It does not mean that his charges should be wiped away because Hunty falsely claimed the charges were as a result of some improper motive. No court has agreed with Hunter on these baseless claims, and his request to dismiss the indictment finds no support in the law or the practice of this district. And so for the foregoing reasons, the motion to dismiss the indictment should be denied and the case should be disposed of in a different manner. And I got a great filing here from David Weiss saying no. He could have just said whatever, no opposition or something, and just let this go. But he didn't. Said, we're going to make sure there's something that attaches to the record. And I think something happened with David Weiss. He got I think he was playing ball, then he got rejected by Hunter. Then he probably started to realize kind of the game is up. Like he's going to lose or he's going to lose. And then he just decided to actually, treat it like a real case, and Hunter got indicted and he's moving forward. But he probably knew that Hunter was going to get pardoned. And so it was just a losing proposition. It feels like he had a sense of that. But anyways, the point is that was submitted, and it turns out the judge came back and said the following. It is hereby ordered that on or before December 3rd, Hunter shall docket the pardon that was referenced by his lawyers. Upon docketing of the pardon, the court intends to terminate the proceedings against Hunter. What does that mean? Doesn't sound like she's going to dismiss the indictment, right? It says terminate the proceedings. It is further ordered that before 12/3, the government shall inform the court whether it objects to termination by dismissal of the indictment as Hunter proposes. And I think they have now objected to that. Yeah, so they've objected to that. And so the government responded. We read that. And then Hunter and his people came out and actually submitted the pardon. They said, all right, Your Honor, you want to see the actual pardon? You can see it. It's right here. And what's funny about this is when I was looking at this earlier today, they submitted this. And in this filing, I was kind of hoping this was going to be real, but you can see they just dropped this one. Fresh out of the oven, 12/2. They said, all right, Your Honor, here, by the way, we got it in a day early. In accordance with your order, Mr. Biden attaches a copy of the pardon that he received, which is also publicly available on the U.S. Department of Justice's website. And I'm like, oh, all right, well, there it is. And so my thought was, let's click that link, and surely it's going to take us to the pardon, right? So you click the link. Yes, I want to leave this page, take us to it. And you say, ah, it's not found. What? No way. Did he file a fraudulent document? That was my initial thought. Like, ah! I was like, all right, don't get so excited, Rob. Relax. There's a period at the end of this URL. So now just get rid of the period. It worked. All right. So that's what I thought. Anyways, I was excited about it. Like, hey, it's a fraudulent filing. That's just, it was capturing the period in the URL. You get it? That's all it was. So not that exciting. I got a little bit ahead of my, it's capturing that little period right there as part of the URL. See it? Ah! Sneaky. All right. So it is now official. He has been pardoned. But some people say if you pardon your son, then you might be obstructing justice and committing new crimes. In fact, here was the previously aforementioned pencil neck censured Schiff. And you can draw the censure right here. You could probably write out the full word here. Censured right here. Just fill it out there. And it might be a good look for him. Anyways, here he is talking about the Trump pardon of his kids, allegedly, in 2018.
So the president's pardon of Scooter Libby, Congressman, has inspired you to propose new legislation. What exactly would it do?
What it would do is say that in the event the president pardons anyone in an investigation in which the president is a witness, a subject, or the target, those investigative files will all be turned over to the Congress. The Congress ought to know whether the president is using the pardon power to obstruct justice. The American people have a right to know.
Oh, we do.
I think it is clearly constitutional. It doesn't prohibit him from granting a pardon, even a pardon he shouldn't grant. But it does say that we will be able to at least find out whether the president is using this power to shield himself from liability.
It offers transparency at the very least.
Yeah, there's the canceled Don Lemon. I think he was fired probably for just being terrible at his job. Not really canceled, but it's just, you know, nobody watched him. But Shifty, I wonder if the president might be obstructing. You think? Yeah, we do. Here's a clip from Drew Hernandez over from CNN. What's Up says, here the following is an exchange where they promised us multiple times this was never going to happen. Here's CNN clip courtesy of @DrewHLive.
Not just Donald Trump, but from President Joe Biden himself. The president issuing a full and unconditional pardon to his son Hunter after repeatedly insisting in public that he wouldn't do it.
Is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Well,
I just said no. I just
no.
Would the president pardon or commute his son if he's convicted?
So I've answered this question before. It
So
was
many
asked
times.
Me not too long ago,
No.
a couple of weeks ago, and I was very clear, and I said no.
You said before that the president would not pardon his son. Is that still the case?
Nothing has changed. That is still the case.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes. I said I abide by the jury decision. I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
I could speak for the president, and he said he would not pardon his son.
Does the president have any intention of pardoning him?
We've been asked that question multiple times. Our answer stands, which is no.
Lies.
Well, it stood until last night.
Oh, CNN. Okay, thank you, Cassie, for that. So even CNN is running these tapes. And here was another one where this woman apparently is thrilled about it. Some people on the left are doing this cope game where they're like, well, Trump pardoned a couple people too who actually went to prison. And this is, yes, it's his son. Yes, it's a blanket pardon. Yes, we kept saying Hunter was not involved in the government. Yes, we lied about this for a long time, but it's still incredible. And we're good people. And we are okay lying to everybody about it as long as we get what we want.
Okay, Jill, let me start with you. Your initial reactions or your reaction to President Biden pardoning his son.
I am relieved and thrilled that he did it. I think this was one of those cases that called out for clemency. Hunter Biden, first of all, would not have ever been prosecuted for the gun crime, but for his last name.
No, if he was Trump, he would have been prosecuted for a bunch of other made up things. If he was a normal citizen, he would have been in jail a long time ago for a lot of other things that are way worse than a stupid gun charge. So these people can't even acknowledge the truth of it. It's pretty amazing. She's like maybe one of like 10 people in the whole country who think this is amazing. There's like 10 of them.
Second of all, he was addicted, and that was a cause of his actions.
Oh, good. So should all addicts get pardons?
For many years, and this is a time when it is really appropriate for a grant of clemency.
Okay. Yeah, really appropriate. Why? Because Joe Biden just lost and he has to cover up for his whole stinking family? Yes, we think so. Now, fake Dr. Jill Biden got asked about this, courtesy of Langman Vince, shared this one, said that she was there doing a Christmas celebration, hanging out with a bunch of kids. Hopefully Hunter was not there. But this is what she got asked out in the world.
Thanks for coming, guys. Dr. Biden, do you support the pardon of Hunter?
Pardon of Hunter, Dr. Biden. Dr. Biden, what changed on the pardon of Hunter?
Of course, she supports the pardon of her son because he is above the law. Thank you, Dr. Jill. We know. So here was a great clip that was being shared all over the place. Scott Jennings, who has been doing an amazing job out there representing a lot of brilliant points, who I think is going over to the LA Times as an editor over there. Congratulations. Shared this one on CNN.
Listen, you guys can spend all day long trying to spin this, that this is Donald Trump's fault, that this is somehow caused by Donald Trump. Oh, he's appointing the wrong people. Oh, he did it. Oh, this is the worst possible thing a president could possibly do to his party and to the country, to sit for a year and say, I will not do this. I will not do this. The rule of law is sacred. We have to respect the justice system. Juries, we have to respect juries. We have to respect the guardrails and the norms of our democracy. These people are liars.
Yes.
Inflation is transitory. Afghanistan, it's a success. The border is secure. Robert Hur is a liar. The videos are cheap fakes.
Joe Biden's
Biden has a
competent.
cold. He'll never drop out. Oh, I'll never pardon Hunter. It's all
one after
a
another.
lie. It is all a grift. Every American, except the most partisan, brain-rotted people, are going to be outraged by this today. He is going to leave off. You think 38, 39% job approval is bad? Just you wait. Just you wait. He's disgraced today. Outrageous.
You don't need to, but Scott, you don't need to hurl names and say people like me are brain rotted. Come on, that's a little beyond the pale, even for you, Scott.
Listen,
I disagree. We can
For
disagree
yourself.
about
You don't
this,
have
but
to
we don't
defend
have
this.
to call
He's
each other
leaving
names.
office. You don't have to defend it. You don't have to die on this hill. You can say this is wrong because
I'm
everybody
fine
knows
with
that
it,
it
Scott.
is.
That's why I'm
It's
defending
wrong.
it.
Are you
Karen?
fine with the lying? Are you
I say
fine
good
with
for
him
Joe
sitting
Biden.
before
Keep
the
going.
election all year and lying to the American people? Are you fine with the lying about it?
Yes, they love it. 4 years.
I don't think that he was lying. I think he made a decision after the fact and decided this was the right thing for him and for his family.
You can see it in her face. Let me back that up just a second. Are you okay with the lying? Watch her explain. You know, she does look like I don't even want to face what I'm saying.
I don't think that he was lying. I
Right
think he
there.
made a decision after the fact and decided this was the right thing for him and
No,
for his family.
no.
Period. Full stop.
It's brain rot on display. You're watching it.
Donald Trump
In real
decided
time.
that
The
it
minute-
was okay to
and
pardon.
Joe Biden, Karine Jean-Pierre, how many minutes of tape do we have of both of these people telling the American people this will not happen? It's
9 minutes.
I mean,
9 minutes.
We
we
could
have
play it all
assembled from
morning.
Gradian.
It's a lie, and it's a lie to benefit his own family, and that's
fine,
all
but
that it
let's
is.
just-
And everybody who
let's
went on
just-
TV and said, "Oh, look how he's the
calling
modern
this-
George Washington," he's drained every ounce of credibility from every surrogate. If Karine Jean-Pierre had an ounce of self-respect, she'd get off the plane in Africa today, where they're going, so he can avoid the press and resign. He's drained all of her credibility, and everybody else who's defended this, it's draining for them forever.
Okay, I'm really glad he added where she's going, right? Where Karine, get off the plane in Africa, where they're going to be there for a trip, okay? They're going to be there for a trip, so they're going to be there already. So, all right, Scott Jennings, man, holy moly. What a bloodbath that was. And she's still doing it, man. Look at her face. She's still reeling. Ah! It was just brutal. So incredible from Scott Jennings. I honestly think that they like being lied to, or they are just so, I don't know what it is. Honestly, I don't know what it is. I can't really wrap my head around it logically, but Joe lied directly on this one. He's lied about all sorts of other things. And maybe you can see yourself, if you're a dyed-in-the-wool liberal, blue as blue can be, you make some marginal adjustments around the edges. You say, well, he's not got as much pep in his step. But then the debate happens. You just get deflated. The debate happens. You got lied to for 3.5 years. The debate happens. You can't wake up from that and realize. Kamala comes out. She's going to win the election. There's joy everywhere. She's beating Trump in the polls. I was up by 15. You lose again. You got lied to again. Okay, is that 2 strikes enough? This third strike, this is 3 strikes now in like the last 6 months that are huge. Not even a problem. I don't think he's a liar. It's like, all right, man. Some people you just can't help, but they make good fodder on the cable news networks. And shout out to Scott Jennings. Absolutely amazing. Now, the pardon will continue. We'll see what happens in both of those cases. We'll see what ultimately the disposition looks like. Will the judge dismiss the cases, or will Hunter have that scarlet letter, that asterisk on his criminal record for all eternity? We know which way we hope it goes. We'll be here to continue to cover it. My friends, thanks for subscribing and joining us as we do. Now, let's turn our attention over to Kash Patel, because we got some good appointments and some positive forward-looking things that are also happening. And this was a big one over the weekend. Kash Patel going to the FBI. President Trump posting this over the weekend, announcing a great new nominee, saying that Christopher Wray, current FBI director, is going to be going bye-bye. And now Kash Patel will take the helm. Says, I am proud to announce that Kash Patel will serve as the next director of the FBI. Kash is a brilliant lawyer, investigator, and America First fighter who has spent his career exposing corruption, defending justice, and protecting the American people. He played a pivotal role in uncovering the Russia collusion hoax, standing as an advocate for truth, accountability, and the Constitution. Kash did an incredible job during my first term, where he served as Chief of Staff at the DOD, Deputy Director of National Intelligence, Senior Director for Counterterrorism, and the National Security Council. Kash has also tried over 60 jury trials. The FBI will end the growing crime epidemic in America, dismantle the migrant criminal gangs, and stop the evil scourge of human and drug trafficking across the border. Kash will work under our great Attorney General, Pam Bondi, to bring back fidelity, bravery, and integrity to the FBI. Nice. Now, Kash Patel came out and responded to this, says, it is the honor of a lifetime to be nominated by President Trump to serve as the director of the FBI. Together, we will restore integrity, accountability, and equal justice to our justice system and return the FBI to its rightful mission, protecting the American people. And a bunch of reaction to this. A lot of lefties very unhappy. You can see this fella was over there saying, what? Huh? He's going to weaponize the FBI if he comes in here. Here's what MSNBC sounded like after the news.
I got to emphasize this to our viewers because a lot of people don't really understand everything the FBI does.
Because you're so dumb.
The FBI director wields incredible power in the United States. And for anyone who doesn't believe that, go read a biography of J. Edgar Hoover. Now, we don't live in the Hoover days anymore, but the FBI still,
yes, we do.
They have people who can break into your home and plant a bug
Trump's
and you'll never know about it. And they can get secret warrants, national security warrants to do that, and no one will ever find out. They can obtain the records of news media phone calls and we'll never hear about it, assuming a Justice Department set of guidelines on that is overturned. So this is an incredibly powerful job. And I got it.
That's right. It is an incredibly powerful job. And the Democrats have been exploiting it for a long time. And we're pretty tired of it. And so there's been more. Joe Scarborough was very upset about it. But there were more congratulations that came out. Ben and Candy Carson said, congratulations to my good friend Kash Patel for getting the nom. Hey, there's Byron back there. I almost didn't even see Byron. I was looking at Ben and Kash. And there's Byron back there. What's up, Byron? Here, saying here, Kash will ensure the Bureau is free of political influence and will refocus it to its true mission of protecting the American people and upholding the U.S. Constitution. Kash's dedication to seeking the truth and justice is unparalleled, and I look forward to his swift confirmation. Good luck to Kash Patel. And there's more support. There's a back and forth, a lot of people hemming and hawing about this. But let's see what the Morning Joe Scarborough, the Mika Brzezinski show, had to say about this morning.
And number two now, Kash Patel. And Kash Patel, of course, is a person who infamously said he was going to jail reporters and journalists
Did they break the law?
People who did not go along with the 2020 election conspiracy theory.
Did they break the law?
It's not even because he's an ideologue. It's because he seems, according to this piece and everything we've seen, singularly focused on exacting revenge on people who did not carry through on Donald Trump's threats of retribution. And again, we will be playing the clip in a minute where he promises to arrest journalists and reporters and news people.
Did they break the law?
Refused to go along with the 2020
What does that mean?
Stop the Steal conspiracy theories.
Kash Patel, perceived by many to be deeply dangerous because he has indeed, as you note, no qualifications for this job.
What? We just heard from Trump. He was deputy NS at the DNI, prosecutor, numerous cases, counterintelligence, all the things. So they're doing their stupid thing where everything is just unqualified and he's incompetent. We'll see if that works out for him. Here's another clip. You can see they're just melting down. Here was a short clip over on CNN.
20 years. She really is eminently qualified. She served, as you said, as Attorney General, the first female. She's been a prosecutor for 20 years. She oversaw the first impeachment of Donald Trump. And I think a lot of Republicans also say, okay, Pam Bondi is going to get us back to the norms of the Justice Department. We will not be weaponizing the Justice Department like we saw under Merrick Garland, that unprecedented raid of Mar-a-Lago against Donald Trump, the unprecedented prosecution against a former president and a leading candidate for the Republican nomination. People are ready to get past that. And like Donald Trump said, he said success is going to be his retribution.
There you go. All right. So that was a nice clip in favor of the new appointees. People who are concerned about the new appointee are like Jamie Raskin. So this guy was out and about. You can see the Post Millennial got this one for us. Tells us that Raskin says, I haven't seen any proof at all that the FBI is corrupt. Okay, have you been alive for the last several years? Because we've seen it.
Do you think there are any issues inside the FBI around politicization, as many who voted for Donald Trump seem to say?
Well, undoubtedly, if you look at it historically, for example, during the COINTELPRO period, the FBI really was weaponized against Dr. King and the civil rights movement.
But not now against
the peace
MAGA
movement.
at all.
There was, decades of the FBI being basically used as a political instrument. There's an interesting book about that, about J. Edgar Hoover by Beverly Gage, that people can look at. I mean, and so I haven't seen what the proof is that the FBI has been weaponized against a political party or the Department of Justice. Of course, this Department of Justice has brought charges against a Democratic U.S. Senator in New Jersey, a Democratic congressman in Texas. And so some people just seem to think that it should go only in one direction. And if it doesn't, then somehow it's politicized. And I think that's what they mean when they talk about politicization in the deep state. I mean, the deep state, nobody's ever defined it. Apparently, it just means anybody who doesn't do the will of Donald Trump.
What a weird clip. So it's like, is the FBI corrupt? He's like, oh, yeah, man, totally. Like, it's been for decades. In fact, there's a whole book about the corrupt FBI, Martin Luther King, the peace movements, all the things. But today's FBI is not, though, because I haven't seen any evidence of it, though. It's like, hey, somebody's in his earpiece, like, calm down, bro. Stop talking. It's like, I watch YouTube videos about this all the time. I'm on this rabbit hole about the corrupt FBI and J. Edgar Hoover and the wiretaps and how he knew everything of the Oval Office. But this current FBI, though, is fine. Jamie, come on, man. You just exposed yourself. We could all see what you really think. Now, here is, and look, honestly, to these Congress people, Jamie Raskin and all the senators, like, do you want to live in fear of your FBI and your CIA? Like, do you guys really enjoy being little bees to the intelligence apparatus. Like, honestly, like, I don't care what kind of weird stuff you're into or whatever. Like, you don't have to live like this as a slave to some central intelligence agents. Okay. All of our 100 senators, 435 Congress people, be free people who care about your actual citizens. And then you don't have to come out and do this and embarrass yourself and say, I've got evidence that the FBI has been corrupt for like decades, but not now. You look like a fool. You sound like a fool. All right. They're clearly corrupt now. There wasn't reform all of a sudden because Joe Biden's in charge. It's pathetic. Jamie, free yourself. You don't have to be a slave to the FBI or the CIA anymore. Emerge. Here's another clip from a senator, and Charlie Kirk is raising the red flags on this. He says, hey, Senator, guess what? You are up for re-election in 2026. If you vote against any of Trump's nominees, a primary challenge is going to be coming for you, buddy. Maybe Charlie Kirk will do it. Here is what he said.
Who the president nominated the first time around. And I think the president picked a very good man to be the director of the FBI when he did that in his first term. When we meet with him behind closed doors, I've had no objections to the way that he's handled himself. And so I don't have any complaints about the way that he's done his job right now. And once again, the president has the right to make nominations, but normally these are for a 10-year term. We'll see what his process is and whether he actually makes that nomination. And then if he does, just as with anybody who is nominated for one of these positions, once they've been nominated by the president, then the president gets the benefit of the doubt on the nomination, but we still go through a process, and that process includes advice and consent, which for the Senate means advice or consent sometimes. Chris Wray.
Advice or consent. All right, man, we'll see what these people do. We're going to be paying close attention to all of them. Here's another senator who is in favor of Kash. Tom Cotton weighed in on this.
Being left to investigate, at least for criminal liability. I will say this, though. Joe Biden may come to regret this decision because having given his son a blanket pardon of 11 years to include time when Joe Biden was vice president, Hunter Biden now can't plead the fifth if he appears before Congress or appears before a grand jury. He has to testify about exactly what he was up to, for instance, when he was traveling.
Yeah, I think he'll bring up, I could be prosecuted by state criminal prosecutors for any of my conduct. I could be civilly charged. So there's other civil liability. There's other criminal liability. It's a nice idea, and I think it's a fun, it feels like kind of like a cope to me, to be honest, from our side. I'm not saying that that's what it is, because I think there could be an argument for it. And, maybe Congress subpoenas him and they don't let him get out of that or whatever. But first of all, I don't think that there's going to be the political wherewithal to want to do that with Hunter. I think a lot of people have some sympathies for Hunter, having been Joe Biden's son and growing up in Washington for 56 years or whatever, however old he is, 58, 60, however old he is now. Living in Washington, it's like a kid is probably going to be pretty doomed coming out of there. But that doesn't absolve him of any of his heinous acts and what he's done to other people to turn his hurt into hurt for other people. So, all of these things, like I said, I think that the incoming Trump administration is probably going to be more focused on building things. They're probably going to want the Bidens just to go into the ash bin of history. And I don't know that they're going to want to go reopen all of this stuff with Hunter. In other words, do they want to subpoena him, have him come in? He's either going to lie through his teeth to them, and then they're not going to charge him with lying to Congress. If he doesn't show up or shows up and doesn't testify, obstruction of Congress, then that's going to go over to Pam Bondi and she's going to prosecute that. I feel like it's kind of a stretch. I just don't think it's going to happen. I could be wrong. And again, I am only tangentially interested in Hunter. Hunter is just a pawn of a much bigger operation. That's what we're interested in. And if we can get to the bottom of that, then I think that is where our political efforts should be expended. But Hunter I'm not trying to absolve him of anything here. It's just, is Tom Cotton going to subpoena him and drag him to the Senate? I doubt it.
traveling to China on Air Force Two and meeting with Chinese communist princelings, or why he was being paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to sit on a Ukrainian energy company's board for which he had no qualifications.
Do you think Tom will
so that
subpoena
may be
him?
one unintended consequence of this pardon that Joe Biden didn't fully think through.
Greg Stanton's a Democrat out of Arizona. He was one of the first to chime in on X. He said, I respect President Biden, but I think he got this one wrong. This wasn't a politically motivated prosecution. Hunter committed the felonies, was convicted by a jury of his peers. There will be a lot more reaction on this later today. In the meantime.
All right, so let's see. Tom Cotton is going to talk about Kash, hopefully. Here he is. So, it's Trey Gowdy. Hey, Trey Gowdy had a good pick. He says, Gowdy praises the Patel pick. Wow, okay, Trey Gowdy. Hey, we kind of, a little bit mean to him sometimes, but I'm glad he's on the right side of that. Here's what Tom Cotton says.
Know Kash as well as Trey knows him, obviously, having sat on the House Intelligence Committee and worked with Kash on that committee. But I do know that Trey is right when he talks about all that Kash worked as a member of that committee staff and then at the White House to expose the corruption and wrongdoing at the FBI and the Department of Justice that unfairly targeted Donald Trump and those around him in his first campaign. I'd also point out that he has many years' experience as a federal prosecutor and a federal public defender, which means he's experienced not only in putting criminals behind bars, but also can understand what happens when government overreaches. That used to be something for the last 4 years that the Democrats extolled as they were putting federal public defenders on the bench. But now all of a sudden they condemn that kind of experience at the very same time that Joe Biden is committing a total perversion of justice by giving his son the most sweeping pardon in modern American history. It's a pretty stark contrast for the Democrats.
Yep. One of the things, I won't ask to play for it because it was from the previous hour, we didn't get to it, but Andrew McCabe, the former acting FBI director, he said that Kash Patel he is profoundly unqualified for this job, and it's not even like a matter for debate. But there is going to be a debate. Do you expect him to get confirmed?
Well, Andrew McCabe is probably scared that someone like Kash Patel is going to come into the FBI and expose the wrongdoing of partisans who had taken over senior positions. And as far as qualifications go, whether it's Andrew McCabe or Democratic senators, I would just ask, what were Pete Buttigieg's qualifications to be the Secretary of Transportation? Or did they complain when Joe Biden put a cross-dressing luggage thief in charge of critical nuclear programs? Kash Patel has a long record in law enforcement and intelligence. That's exactly the kind of qualifications you would expect for an FBI director. I expect the Senate to move forward with his nominations and all of Donald Trump's nominees efficiently and promptly when we take charge on January 3rd.
All right, we'll see. All right, so Tom Cotton's talking a good game, and we are hopeful that Kash Patel does make it through. And I think from what we've seen, there is some more openness to this than maybe people might have thought previously. I think, if I can say it, I think that Matt Gaetz drew a lot of the air from their sails out of them. It's like, well, okay, Kash Patel, at least it's not Matt Gaetz. They're all like, woof, all right, at least it's not Matt Gaetz. So we'll see where that goes. Tom Cotton is on board. The Article 3 project is now saying, call your senators and get involved, demand that they confirm Kash Patel. And so we'll repost this at the top of our timeline if you want to follow them, find out how to get Kash Patel confirmed. The Article 3 project is on it. And then lastly, Representative Cory Mills was also talking about Kash Patel. Here's what he says, welcoming him as our new FBI director.
I tell you, Kash is a close personal friend of mine. I talked to Kash immediately after the nomination by the president, and it's a fantastic nomination to clean up the deep state, the admin state, and the nanny state. Kash has seen from the inside with his qualifications and his time in the administration what type of weaponization has gone forward, and he's going to clean up the FBI, and Pam Bondi, coming in as Attorney General, is going to clean up the Department of Injustice. And we're going to have real rule of law, not the weaponization that you see under this corrupt administration. I'll tell you,
all right, so some good excitement there. FBI needs a very good house cleaning. We were a bit concerned that Trump may want to keep things the status quo there, and we'll eat our words on that. There were posts that we saw from the president saying he was going to build him a big new building and all the things. And I was very irritated about giving the FBI a big, new, beautiful building, because I'm like, well, that's Christopher Wray. Ah! But if Kash is going to be in charge, for the next 10 years, and he's going to clean house. Maybe they do need a new building. You know what I mean? All right, so we'll be here to continue to follow it, my friends. Thank you for subscribing, and we'll see you back here once this confirmation moves forward and all the time in between. And now, we're not done. We've got one final update on the day, and let's get this puppy queued up appropriately. The AP, you know, they always have a bunch of garbage on their page, which is always kind of irritating. So we like to clean it up a bit. But sometimes your boy clicks the wrong buttons and does a bad job on that, and then it doesn't look good. So here, let's get that fixed right here. As you can see, much better. Here's a new report that just dropped. The Pentagon apparently was manipulating reporting numbers on how many people were in the January 6th event who were military veterans. And this is an interesting story that came over from the AP, and I've got a big document pulled up here that is also something we'll just hit the highlights on because it's about 260 pages. So here are the headlines from the AP. A new study says that the military was relying on old data when they were trying to identify extremists in their ranks. The report tells us the following, that Pete Hegseth sat in front of a screen with a headline that wrote the following: study disproves military extremism problem. It was January 4th of this year. Hegseth was speaking to Fox, saying a new study proved that the number of military service members and veterans involved in J6 did not indicate a wider problem in the armed forces. So they're trying to compare and contrast the two. The Pentagon funded the report to which Hegseth referred, said there was no evidence that the number of violent extremists in the military was, quote, disproportionate to extremists in the general population. Hegseth said they knew this was a sham. Then they do the study, which confirms what we all know. Hegseth was working for Fox. But the Wall Street Journal highlighted the same problems, okay? Extremists in the military were, quote, phantoms. There was a false military media narrative about these extremists. The Associated Press also found that the study, which is the study that we'll look at, relied on old data. It was misleading in their analysis, and it ignored evidence that pointed to the opposite conclusion, trying to frame certain people as J6 extremists in the military so that they can purge them out of the military. In fact, the AP found that the report's authors did not use newer data that was offered to it. Instead, based one of its foundational conclusions on J6 arrest figures that were more than 2 years out of date. And as a result, the report grossly undercounted the number of military veterans arrested for the J6 attack and provided a misleading picture of the severity of the problem, they say. So the problem might be actually worse than they said. Now, the number of service members who radicalize make up a tiny fraction, but their impact can be large. So they published quietly this report just before Christmas last year, nearly 18 months late, and no recommendations, no announcement. Its key recommendation was the following: the DoD should, quote, not overreact and draw too large of a target in its anti-extremism efforts, despite Lloyd Austin's promise to attack the problem head on in the wake of January 6th. But they actually undercounted the number of military people who were there on J6. Interesting. A longtime partner to the Pentagon had received more than $1 billion in contracts. But the number of arrestees with military backgrounds nearly tripled. Okay, we had veterans there who got abused by our government. The report states that its research was conducted from June 21 to June 22. The number of active military arrested had grown by nearly 50%. But the report was published a year and a half later. The people who attended that were not reported. That has since grown to 18%. But the 199-page report conceded that there's some indication that the radicalization numbers in the veterans community could be slightly higher and may be growing. This is interesting. So it sounds like they're trying to downplay the number of the arrests that occurred, even though that number is thought to be an undercount, He noted the military uses administrative discharges to quietly remove extremists from the rank. Such cases do not show up in START's data because the military does not release information about them. So it's interesting here because they're trying to downplay those numbers, but they're still booting people from the military. Jensen, who was consulted for its report, is cited in 24 times, says using the J6 data alone, even if calculated correctly, was not a valid approach to measuring extremism. J6 is an absolutely terrible event to use to try to estimate how much extremism is in the military. The observation is underscored by records obtained by the AP. One complaint filed to the DoD whistleblower hotline expressed an interest in heading to J6, but says, I can't, I'm in the military. Bad data, false assertions. So the point is they just make stuff up and they write reports to serve themselves. Here is what the report looked like. And it seems like there's a lot going on here, but this is what the report looks like. It's 262 pages. There's some interesting charts and graphics in here, but I'll show you the table of contents so we can see what is ultimately inside. Here's the summary. They say on February 5th, Lloyd Austin issued a memo directing a one-day stand down to talk about extremism, remember? And this report is what they're saying is all rigged. Numbers are bad, you pulled old data, all sorts of things. On April 9th, the secretary issued a second memo directing immediate actions to counter extremist activities in the department and establishing a working group to implement those actions and develop additional recommendations. And this is right in the aftermath of COVID, right? So Biden just took over and they're mandating jabs all over the place, all sorts of stuff. One of the immediate actions called for by April 9th was an independent study on extremist behavior in the force. And this Institute for Defense Analysis got the study. The objective was to gain greater fidelity on the scope of the extremist ideologies and people who are extremists in the military, identify the sources of those ideologies, and prevent and counter and neutralize those extremists. The teams built a library of governance documents. They did 57 interviews, 100 officials. They visited geographically diverse Marine Corps installations and more. Now, they say there are many forms of extremist ideologies and motivations. The academic literature describes left-wing, right-wing, single issue, politico, religious extremism. There's ethnic, racial, anti-government, anti-authority, animal, environmental, abortion, terrorist, all sorts of things. So we have to follow the Constitution, and we found no evidence that the number of violent extremists in the military is disproportionate to the U.S. No evidence of violent extremist behavior by DoD civilians. The participation in violent extremist activities of even a small number of individuals, however, could present a risk. So there is no real extremism problem, but the people that we do have could be a problem. The DoD has used a wide variety of terms and phrases to describe prohibited conduct. In the absence of a clear message, we don't know what could be considered extremism. We found reason to believe that the risk to the military from widespread polarization may be a greater risk than radicalization of a few service members, okay? So if you try to impose, this actually makes a lot of sense. If you try to impose a standard, right, like there might not be a problem, but now if everybody has to believe this way, then you might actually radicalize some people. Go figure, they figured it out. For this reason, the recommendations focus more on steps that could be taken to address the underlying extremist behavior than to punitive responses for other behavior. The department recently published an improved definition of extremist activities. However, other DoD and military and other service policies contain language that have not developed a clear guidance. The IDA recommends the DoD take steps to make sure the new definition is consistent so you guys actually know what extremism is. Develop your core values, respect, duty, honor, mission, and more. You could also support service members by expanding on these threats and more. So it's a huge report, and you can see how it goes. But I wanted to just share with you a couple of the graphics that were in here so we could see how they're trying to psychologically psychoanalyze us and categorize us according to ideology. So extremism in policy documents. There were some further down here, I think around page 78, as I was browsing through this. Here you go. So here you go. The new definition, what is extremism? Now, over the last year, the DoD responded to uncertainty over the definition of extremism. What the heck does that mean? How can we punish people for being an extremist if we don't even know what that means? The revised extremism standard is much improved, published on December 20th, 2021. Here is a comprehensive definition of prohibited extremist activities. The new definition includes 4 types of actions that constitute prohibited extremist activities when they have the objective of promoting several categories of improper or illegal objectives. So these are illegal objectives in this column. These are the actions, the activities. So if you're advocating, engaging in, if you're supporting, or if you're encouraging any of these, you're an extremist. Unlawful force or unlawful violence or other illegal means, so any other illegal means, to deprive anyone of their rights under the laws of the United States, or unlawful force or unlawful violence to achieve goals that are discriminatory, political, or ideological. Okay, so they're crisscrossing those. Other illegal means, so don't break the law. Terrorism, the overthrow of the government or any subdivision. Extremism, military, civilian, or contractor personnel to disobey lawful orders and regulations to disrupt the military. And then this one, widespread unlawful discrimination based on race, color, national origin, religion, sex, including pregnancy, gender identity, or sexual orientation. See, that's the one. So if you're advocating for widespread unlawful discrimination, see that? If you're advocating for that. So what does that even mean? Is that free speech? You might say, well, what is widespread unlawful discrimination? It's a pretty broad category, right? You might say something is or should be unlawful, but it is actually lawful. So let's say some local city says everybody can use whatever bathroom they want. That's the law. And you say that should not be the law and that should not happen. And maybe you advocate on X that is something that should not be followed, for example, right? I would never do that. Allow somebody in my place of business to do whatever, right? Now you're advocating, we're just checking the boxes, advocating for unlawful discrimination based on gender identity. See how easy that is? Boom, boom, boom. Great. You're a military extremist now. How's that feel? Good for you. Now, here's a schematic of this. So they also diagrammed this out. And this is an interesting document. You probably want to read more of this. It says, here's another thing. So to zoom out, we add another layer to this. So these were the prohibited types of activities in conjunction with the action step. But also if you do any of these things, advocate or engage, advocate material support, communicate military information, if you recruit or train others, if you fundraise or even make donations to, wow. Create or organize or take a leadership role in, actively demonstrate or rally in support of, attend a meeting, distribute literature or other promotional materials about protecting your bathrooms or whatever, receiving material support, accessing internet sites through government computers, displaying paraphernalia, posting, liking, sharing, or retweeting. Oh my gosh! Knowingly taking any other action in support of. Definitely. We're a bunch of extremists here tonight. I know that. Says schematic also includes these other things. And as they are psychoanalyzing everybody, they'll categorize you into these pyramids. Here's the opinion pyramid. Feel need or to take violent action, right? If you're coming up towards here, if it's a personal moral obligation, you might be violent. But if it's not, maybe you'll just let it slide. And there's risk factors, cognitive models, how to deal with these extremists who might make a donation about bathrooms. And this is what they've come up with. So just wanted to share that with you. Let me show you. If there was one other graphic, which was an interesting one. It's kind of like plotting us on a chart. Have you ever been, these are recruiting questions. Okay, so they're going to start recruiting people based on these things. Monster report. And that's the highlight of it. All right, so the AP is reporting that a lot of it is just not accurate. It's old data, and they're using it to, I guess, create new policies in the DOD. Pete Hegseth will come in, and I'm sure we'll do a refresh on that document, and we'll see what types of changes he implements. So the DOD in for a major shock, and hopefully they start to fix these problems. We're excited for Pete Hegseth to do it. All right, my friends. And so it's been a beautiful stream today. Let's do a quick recap on what we talked about today. Then we'll jump into your questions, your comments. Thank you so much for being here and joining us. If you want to rewind because you got here late, we talked about Dan Goldman getting obliterated. You can see him here sweating profusely through his Levi Strauss pores. And in addition, we went through the documents in Hunter's case. So we got to see what they filed to dismiss the case, or rather to stop the prosecution of the case because of the pardon. Read through those filings, saw the official pardon document that's now been published, got reaction on this from CNN, from Pencilneck, and from others. And then we talked about Kash Patel going over to the FBI. A lot of support for him, more than I suspected would be out there, from people like Tom Cotton, Jamie Raskin, and others trying to figure out how to respond to this. And then, of course, an interesting J6 segment on its extremist activities in this study from the DOD. Sounds like more government incompetence. But now, my friends, it's time to hear from you. And let's see what you say about this and more before we go over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party. And we welcome our new members. We had a great members only stream this morning where we talked about more Biden stuff. But hey, we got some great comments. Hey, what's going on? Our friends over on Locals. Let's pop out our comments and see who is here and joining us today. Donuts clipping for us. Hunter says, Philip Butler says, if Hunter is called, he can't plead the fifth now. Yeah, I mean, that's what a lot of people are saying. I still think that he would. And if you say you can't, are you going to force him to talk? And if he does talk, is he going to say anything truthful at all? Or will he just say, I'm not going to talk? And then they'll have to prosecute him again and then expend all the political capital on a failed family. So I just have my doubts that it's going to materialize or go anywhere, even though I know that is probably disappointing to a lot of people if it doesn't go anywhere. Hey, Sheila Poo says, love that they now must all eat crow. No kidding. Joe lied about the pardon like he has about everything else related to the DOJ. Yeah, most of Joe's entire life is a lie. And he's a plagiarist. And the Democrats have been covering for him for the last 4 years, and now it's all coming out. And it's one after another. Like, how many lies before you've had enough? This is another one. Mark H. What's up, Mark H? Thanks for being here. Thanks for sending in the dono. Great to have you. It's a beautiful Monday. Hey, Spud says, hey, Dems, it's an all-you-can-eat crow buffet. Line up. We'll even cover the bill. We'll even cover the bill. And you can have a to-go box, too. Enjoy it. Hey, Glocky's here. Oh, gosh. Okay, we won't play that one. But here it says, Hunter Biden 10 minutes after being pardoned. And it's a guy in a car with... Oh, this just must be... it's just snow on his face. That's all it is. It's just snow on his face. Hey, Glocky says, Biden still owes $300,000 in rent. Is that right? This story, Segoya Sean McGuire. Hunter tried to pay $300,000 in back rent with art made from his own feces. That's just great. There's this one. Secret watch list leaks online, and the feds think a lot of people are terrorists, from Glocky. This old guy says, well, maybe the pardon is actually a good thing. Anything that screws with Dan Goldman's head is priceless. He looked like he was about to explode in that clip, didn't he? Thank you, this old guy. We got some more cocaine memes that are coming in here. Thank you, Glocky. Lots of cocaine and crack pipe memes all over the place, which we'll just skip here. But thank you for sending those in. Glocky says, Biden and his advisors in jail knew Hunger had a substance abuse problem And instead of being an actual dad or family and stepping out of public life, they used him to launder money in Ukraine to be a tool to be used so Biden could say, I'm just like you, Dad. Instead of getting props for being a good dad that pardoned his son like the Democrats are using for a talking point, Joe and his advisors and the Biden family should all be getting condemned for all of this. Yeah, it's not about doing something good for Hunter. It's about protecting them from the exposure that a prosecution of Hunter provides. So it's very self-serving. It's not like they're doing something nice for Hunter. Former, I wonder if the Republicans have the guts to file in state courts for any violations of state law, just like they did to President-elect Trump. A presidential pardon only applies to federal crimes, not violations of state law. I wouldn't mind seeing 30 indictments for violations of state laws. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like Tom Cotton could subpoena him, and he's like, I'm not going to tell you about anything because they might indict me in California or something. Not that they would, but I think that's right. Rick Donner bringing in membos, 5 membos. Thank you, Rick D. The Roz Rodriguez is here. Molly H. Dave Nunya Business is here. PLM Productions and Battlecam Zero. Gifted membos courtesy of Rick Donner. Great to see you, Rick D. Miata Mama says, isn't there a 5-year waiting period on pardons? No, I don't think so. Not when you're the president. You might see stuff like that, like if you go and apply for a commutation from your governor or something, they might say, well, you can only apply for it after 5 years from the date of the conviction or something. But no, the president, it's the president. It's a very powerful power. Gentifer, what's up? Gentifer says, nothing can upset me today. Not even this disgraceful pardon. I'm doing the Trump dance because Kash nominated as FBI director. Best news and best pick apart from Tom Homan. Boom. In the house, Gentifer. Yeah, I think that's true. A Kash nomination is worth many more Hunter Biden pardons. Much better. Knox Bierman, what's up, Knox? Says, as my clients are never pardoned, I hadn't really thought about the mechanisms of said pardon, but I side with the state on this one. Knox is a defense attorney in Texas. How can you be pardoned from a case wherein you have not been found guilty and dismissal of indictments would not be included? Yeah, and I think that also matches other dispositions. Like even the disposition of a case should reflect the actual disposition. Like I'd love all my cases to just be dismissed, but even the ones that were diversions, it says diversion/dismissal. So you know it's a diversion/dismissal. Clients all over the country would love that. Every time there is a disposition of a case, if it just said dismissed, even if they did 6 months of rehab and whatever. No, it got dismissed based on a diversion. So it should reflect the truth, I think. Gentifer, what's up? Rob, if Daniel Penny is found guilty, can Trump pardon him? Praying he's acquitted, but don't trust New York justice. So the answer, unfortunately, is no, because again, it's a state level crime. So Trump's pardon power extends to the federal jurisdiction, but not the states. So hopefully the New Yorkers do the right thing there. Bruce Wayne says, note to Democrats, don't do drugs. It's a good note. It's a good note, but Hunter, some of them are way far gone. Rocky says, cheers, but there's time to recover. There's time they could recover. Rocky Water says, cheers to Scott Jennings. That was an itch that has needed some scratching for some time. Well put there, Scott. Yeah, it was a fun clip, wasn't it good? And shout out to Bonnie. I think Bonnie flagged that one for us originally. Glocky says, that MSNBC dude saying that the FBI can get secret warrants and break into your home without you knowing sums up why they want complete control of the FBI. I'm still waiting for someone to explain to me where the Constitution says we shall have a federalized, centralized intelligence agency that targets Americans like the FBI. Yeah, I don't think it's in there, Glocky. Don't think I've read it a couple times. Don't think I missed it, but if someone knows where that is, let me know. One old guy's opinion says, Democratic Congressman Henry Cuellar of Laredo, Texas was just reelected. He was also raided and indicted, but was reelected and is still in office. No trials or convictions under this Democrat DOJ. Is that right? Interesting. One old guy's opinions. I hadn't seen that one. And Michael Swade says, A Delaware judge just blocked Elon's $56 billion Tesla pay package and simultaneously awarded $345 million in compensation for the lawyers who sued to block the original pay package. That's sick. Thank you, Michael Swade, for that update. And is Elon, that's pre him moving to Texas? I know he's not. He's moving out of Delaware, which is Delaware is doing so much damage to itself. It's incredible. Hey, thank you, Michael Swade. Caroline, thank you, Caroline, saying, hey, thanks for hitting the like button, my friends. If you're out there, wherever you're watching, YouTube, the Rumbles, the Locals, the X's, thanks for liking the video. And thank you, Caroline, for the reminder on that. Let's say hello to our friends on X, then we'll wrap it up. We'll go hang out on Locals at watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members-only after party, where we'll hang out, debrief, see what's cooking. But for now, we've got some comments. Oh, look who's at the border. Isn't this interesting? From our meme smith, Paul Mino. Joe Biden did build a wall. It's called the law. Or actually, other people built the wall called the law. And he's throwing Hunter over it. Thanks, Dad. Thanks, Dad. LOL, you're welcome, son. You're welcome, son. They're getting over the wall. Thank you, Paul Mino. Genius. James Pepper, what's up? Clearly Scarborough is racist. Cannot handle the idea of a man of color being at the head of the FBI. That's true. There's a lot of bigotry here against Kash. Danny says he's going to pardon his brother next. Monica Hendricks, he's done with the CNN TDS. He started out as a slow Trump defender, but has now found his footing. Good to see you. Hey, David Smith. Hey, Dave Smith. This is the Dave that works for Jake Sullivan. What's up, Dave, who works for Jake Sullivan? Jake has a super special announcement tonight after the show, just for members. To everyone else watching and wondering, wait, this show has backstories and lore? Yes, it does. You better believe it. Come over and join on Locals, and Locals members, be sure to stay for the after show. Amazing, Dave. David Smith, thanks for that. So Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, is a member of our Locals. Dave works for him. Often helps the post happen over there. I can't wait to see what it is. I can't wait for it. Thank you, David. Good to see you. E-Sands, I thought nobody was above the law. Wrong. TJ King says, there's no statute of limitations on certain crimes. Hunter was in the Navy, and there's evidence of his crimes before that time, so maybe they can go get him for those. Wow. CNN is already telling us their plan. Just resign, then Kamala pardons Joe Obama. Wow. You think Joe resigns and then Kamala pardons Joe? Yikes. Could you imagine? The Democratic Party would be even more obliterated than it already is. Hopefully they do it. All right, my friends. Let's see. We got one final dono. Vince J. Thank you, Vince. Said this. Comer said that the Republican-led investigations uncovered loads of evidence and was put on the shelf until there's a DOJ that will prosecute the crimes. Yeah, that I'm more interested in, right? Is who Hunter was just a bag man for a lot of people, probably the Republicans too. In particular, the pro-Ukraine people who are on the same side as Joe Biden in being pro-Ukraine. Hey, Knox is here. Says Quellar was arraigned in Houston last spring. That's from CNN. Henry Quellar. Interesting, Knox. I hadn't heard that story. I know the name. Yeah, wow. Look at that. 600K in bribes? Whew, that's a lot of super chats, man. Tex Rick says, the Kash selection is the very best. Absolutely love it. From Tex Rick in the house. It's going to be a good one. I'm happy about it, too. I was getting nervous because they were telling us it was going to be that Mike... Morgan, what was his name? Mike Rogers. And that guy was like anti-Trump at every turn. J6, classified docs case, and more. It was brutal. Lady I says, maybe I missed it if you already talked about it, but does Ray have to resign for Trump to replace him? Yeah. What if he refuses to resign because he said he intends to serve out his term, being obviously delusional as to his performance so far? Well, I think Trump can fire him. Like, it's up to a maximum 10-year term, but it doesn't say that it's mandatory for him to be and serve all 10. So it's like, I'll ask for your resignation or you're fired. So just pick one. So I don't think there's anything that ties Trump's hands in keeping Ray. And why would he? Ray sent FBI agents to raid his house. It's insane to ask Trump to keep Christopher Wray. Like, are you kidding me? He raided your house and went through your wife's closet. Yeah, not Wray specifically, but he has access to those files. And he probably looked. So, yeah. So he needs to go. And his actions need to be reviewed as well. Thank you, Lady Ice. And Cartier says, while you're doing cool locals members only stuff, you made some big claims about a certain pew-pew the other day, and there was no payoff. Oh, Cartier, you're talking about, we'll pull it back out again. We did it the following day. You're right. I was talking about the show and tell, and then we finished the stream, and I didn't show and tell anything. It's like, oh my gosh. And then we came back the next day and did it. Anyways, so we'll get back to it. All right, my friends, that is going to be it for us. Thank you for sending in these amazing donos. Thanks for being here. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for inviting a friend or family member to come over and join us. We live stream 5 days a week here at this time, and there's a ton of stuff to cover, and we can't wait to get into it with you on the next one. So we'll leave it there. Want to thank our amazing mods and our meme smiths. Thank you to Donut Mind Me for clipping today. We got Carrie B. We got K-Bean, John McGarvey, modding the fort down for us. We're very grateful for everybody being here. I think I may have seen Playing Hooky in the house. There he is. And it's great to see everybody. So my friends, we'll leave it there. We'll go to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party. We also do member streams in the morning. So if you're looking for some extra content, want to join another live stream, 9 a.m. Arizona, 11 a.m. Eastern time is when we go live in the mornings. Of course, those segments come out later as well. So if you can't join us, you can still grab those bits. But that is going to be it for us on the day, my friends. I hope your week is off to an incredible start, and I hope that we see you back here tomorrow, because we need to get into it again. And in order to do that, we need to see you right back here, so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.